on satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web, and around the world. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7.
Tonight, Human Rights Review. Deputy Minister Dr. Harsha De Silva briefs delegates on improvements Sri Lanka has made since last review. Committee upon committee. Cabinet to appoint a technical committee to probe the recent fuel crisis. Cabinet subcommittee report passes the ball to officials. Hub of the Indian Ocean. Prime Minister stresses trade liberalization and regional integration key to achieving Sri Lanka's ambitions. What are standing orders? Minister Susil Premajayantha suggests some parliamentarians require a tutorial on parliamentary procedures.
I never mentioned the name of a member. You better sit down.
And in international headlines, Zimbabwe in crisis. Zimbabwe's 93-year-old president taken out of the back door by the army.
We urge you to remain calm and limit unnecessary movement.
Good evening to all of you joining us across Sri Lanka and around the world, and thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm Mahesh Johnny, and this is First at 9. We want to take you straight to Zimbabwe, where a political coup is taking shape. Amid growing tensions of political upheaval, Zimbabwe's military today confirmed that it has seized control of the country, targeting criminals around President Robert Mugabe. Zimbabwe's military took over the national broadcaster, Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, overnight, but today denied speculations of a military coup and assured the safety of the world's oldest president, Mugabe, and his family.
In a short broadcast following the siege, spokesperson of Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Major General Subisiso Moyo, denied a conquest of the government.
Firstly, wish to assure the nation that His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade R.G. Mugabe, and his family are safe and sound, and their security is guaranteed. We are only targeting criminals around him who are committing crimes that are causing social and economic suffering in the country in order to bring them to justice. As soon as we have accomplished our mission to normal, we urge you to remain calm and limit unnecessary movement.
Even though the statement did not name the targeted individuals, the government source quoted by Reuters states that Finance Minister Ignatius Chombo is among those detained. Meanwhile, in spite of the statement issued by the military, a series of tweets posted by an account suspected to be run by supporters of Zimbabwe's ruling party, ZANU-PF, which denied speculations of a coup and claimed a bloodless transition of power, suggested that the first family was detained. The Twitter account, which later pledged its allegiance to former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who was sacked from his position on claims of traits of disloyalty, announced that Mnangagwa is made interim president. The dismissal of Mnangagwa was conjectured by many as paving way for President Mugabe's wife, Grace, to follow in her husband's footsteps as leader of Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, international media reported claims of Zimbabwe's opposition movement for democratic change, which alleged that First Lady Grace Mugabe fled to Namibia. These claims, however, are yet to be confirmed by the military. A veteran UK Conservative MP, Sir Nicholas Soames, whose father was the last governor of Rhodesia and friend of Robert Mugabe, expressed his views on the alleged coup.
I can tell you what Zimbabwe needs. It needs stability and good order. It could be the breadbasket. It was the breadbasket of Africa. It's the most wonderful, brilliant farmers. It needs a chance to be able to get on and sort itself out. And it's being held back by this dreadful corruption and deceit of the ZANU-PF. The country is in very, very bad shape. So it all comes at a very bad moment, indeed, for Zimbabwe and its long suffering and much put upon people.
Meanwhile, issuing a statement, South Africa's President Jacob Zuma said that Robert Mugabe is confined to his home. The official statement released by the South African President's office also stated that Zuma is in contact with the Zimbabwean Defense Force.
Leader of the Sri Lankan delegation to the 28th session of the UN Human Rights Council Universal Periodic Review Working Group, Dr. Harsha De Silva told delegates that Sri Lanka is committed to investigations carried out in respect to past human rights violations respecting due process. Speaking at the third review of Sri Lanka underway at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Dr. De Silva asserted that Sri Lanka is resolute never to slip back on reporting obligations again and are currently discussing ways to strengthen internal systems for this purpose. He urged delegates in attendance to view Sri Lanka's achievement over the past 35 months in the context of a developing nation that is firmly committed to taking steps to ensure non-reoccurrence. He pointed out that Sri Lanka considers investments in reconciliation and peace as sound economic policy to attract investment, adding that during the end of the conflict in 2009, there were some 300,000 internally displaced persons, and today the number in welfare camps have reduced to 3,000. Meanwhile, participating in the interactive dialogue that followed the opening speech made by Sri Lanka, member states recommended that the country strengthen efforts to prevent all forms of torture and ensure the implementation of its zero-tolerance policy.
The UN Periodic Review was established by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 2006 as a process through which the human rights record of every UN member state is peer-reviewed. During the process, the country under review submits a written report on its human rights record and appears before the Council, where it receives recommendations regarding its human rights record from other UN member states. Sri Lanka's current participation marks the third occasion which the country faced such a review. The country underwent its first UPR cycle in 2008 and the second in 2012. The delegation comprises of officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Attorney General's Department, the President's Office and the Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka to the UN in Geneva. The National Report of Sri Lanka for the third review covers areas that were part of the recommendations adopted by Sri Lanka following the second UPR in 2012. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Report for the third review was drafted following wide consultations with all stakeholders, including public consultations in Colombo, Kandy, Galle, Jaffna and Kalmune, online consultations as well as consultations by post. Under the 28th session of the Universal Periodic Review Working Group, adoption of fresh recommendations on Sri Lanka will take place on Friday.
Recalling today's newspaper reports on the suicide of a 10-year-old schoolgirl, President Maithripala Sirisena highlighted that special attention is needed on the issue of suicide. He was speaking at an event held in Pushpadana Girls' College in Kandy.
The 75th anniversary celebration and the annual prize-giving ceremony of Pushpadana Girls' College in Kandy was held under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena today.
There was a news item on the first page of a newspaper today which said that 8 people, including a 10-year-old schoolgirl, had committed suicide in a span of 3 days. I especially read the part about the schoolgirl. The newspaper said she committed suicide because she was bullied with name-calling by other students in the school. There are problems with regards to solutions given for adults and children who face challenges in society. These problems need to be addressed.
Meanwhile, a group of former JVP and UMP MPs representing the Kandy district, including former JVP Member of Parliament Dimuthu Abekun, joined the SLFP after meeting with the President at President's House in Kandy today.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasizes the importance of integrating with the global trading system in order to be a hub in the Indian Ocean. Addressing the inauguration ceremony of the exhibition Intex South Asia 2017, centered on the South Asian apparel sector, the Premier, however, said more need to be done towards this end. Speaking at the same event, the Prime Minister said that the budget has laid the groundwork for the creation of employment through exports for an outward-looking economy.
The exhibition Intex South Asia 2017 was declared open at the Sri Lanka Exhibition and Conference Centre, Colombo, by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning. With apparel manufacturing shifting to South Asia from the likes of China and Southeast Asia, the exhibition creates a platform for international buyers and suppliers to reap its advantage. Intex South Asia 2017 is held in a backdrop where Sri Lanka's apparel exports have increased by 11.3% to 1.17 billion US dollars compared to last year.
Sri Lanka's apparel industry is an important one for the integration of Sri Lanka with the global trading system. But there's much more to be done. There's many opportunities on the value chain which we have not taken within the region. We have brought in the new Foreign Exchange Act, replacing the Exchange Control Act, presenting the anti-dumping bill as a counterweight to the liberalizing trade further. We are gradually removing the para-tariffs, working on the ease of doing business, which will come into being by early part of next year. There are many other legislations that we plan to remove further barriers to integration with the international community.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister also highlighted the importance of using the GSP concession in order to be a hub of the Indian Ocean.
The main beneficiaries, export beneficiaries are apparel, the rubber industry and fishing. They have to utilize this to increase exports till we get the other industries coming into Sri Lanka. We are also negotiating a free trade agreement with Singapore, which will hopefully be signed in January, deepening the trade relations with India with the economic and technological cooperation agreement, at the same time negotiating a free trade agreement with China. Three significant memorandums of understanding with three Asian governments, with India and China, and the third is Japan. So this shows the way forward, how we are liberalizing and how we are integrating ourselves with Asia. That is important.
State Minister of Finance Derana asserts that the public service is proving to be a hindrance to Sri Lanka's growth. Addressing a post-budget seminar organised by the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka in Colombo yesterday, the State Minister also spoke on the government's plan to provide home ownership to every citizen.
The seminar budget highlights 2018 tax proposals and impact on business and economy was held under the auspices of State Minister of Finance Derana.
If you ask me to pick one thing that is holding back the speedy growth of this country, it is the public sector of this country. In a short period, the public sector was nearly doubled by the former government. The question I ask is, did it actually increase the services that citizens get, or did it actually increase the efficiency of the services that citizens get? And the answer is a clear no. This politicization must stop. And this politicization has really put the country back. Some of the best minds in this country are in the public service, but the system does not allow to get the best out of them.
The minister said that the government will be going for an extensive distribution of home ownership over the next 3 years through the introduction of new legislation.
The vast majority of people in this country don't own an asset, don't own the piece of land on which their grandfather, their parents, and they live on. But we will go further, and we are already making an act of parliament which will be brought to parliament in 2018, which will enable the state to give ownership to other Sri Lankans who are dispossessed and don't have ownership of their home.
Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe says that trade of local shipping companies might be affected if business opportunities of foreign shipping companies are to be increased. The minister made this remark during the 5th day of the second reading of the budget 2018 today.
I
have an issue with one proposal of this budget. Only 40% of business opportunity is given for foreign shipping companies through the Gazette. Minister Mangala, however, suggests to extend it to 100%. We can't close down local businesses. We too have to go to rural areas. We don't sit loitering at the cabinet either. Although this is called a blue-green budget, nothing of the sort will be achieved by it. They distract the parliament with the prices of beer while letting the people of this country face a huge additional tax in 2018. Former president ended a war and developed the country, but only took out 5.2 trillion rupees in loans. This government within 3 years has taken 4.7 trillion rupees in loans. They haven't dealt with the war or has not done anything either. Minister Mangala's budget destroys local economy and opens the doors for foreigners. I did a legal and political analysis of the interim report on the proposed constitution during the debate on the 1st. A politician who did not understand it and got enraged convened a media briefing the following day to level false allegations. Someone should stop this. If they don't, we have documents to solve it the proper way.
ගොඩින්ගන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන සියලු ලිපි ලේඛන තියෙනවා.
එතුමා කලින් ප්‍රකාශයක් කළා එතුමාට මඩ ගැහුවා අපහාස කරා කියලා. අපහාසයක් හරි මොකක් හරි කරා නම්
No point of order. No point of order. It doesn't know the meaning of the point of order. I never mentioned the name of a member. You better sit down. If you don't know, please go to the library and go through standing orders. You learn from them. I never mentioned about a name of a member of parliament. You don't know the meaning of standing order. Please sit down.
What's the point of order?
I suggest that parliamentarians who speak in this house be given lessons on the regulations of parliament.
No point of order.
The Cabinet Subcommittee appointed to review the recent fuel crisis has identified the leading cause of the issue to be inefficient fuel stock management. The report submitted by Committee Chairman, Minister of Special Assignment Dr. Sarath Amunugama recommended appointing a board of inquiry with the participation of officials with specialized technical knowledge to identify officers responsible. Now, the Cabinet of Ministers has decided to act according to these recommendations of the report.
He clearly said that the particular newspaper made a mistake and that he never said anything as such. Minister Chandama Veerakkodi also said how the newspaper mentioned many names from the southern province. Minister Ranthunga will send his comments to the newspaper stating that he never said anything as such. He said he will clarify everything. There are problems over the magnitude of the issue not being informed to the relevant political authorities, not having a proper mechanism for this sort of emergency situation, and not storing necessary stocks of fuel properly. The report also highlighted how there is no system to buy fuel on a long-term basis and not using oil tanks at the Trincomalee port because of the failure to make a decision on them. The report went on to talk about the absence of a program that took care of storing fuel even in our limited storage capacities. Minister Ranthunga requested a special committee to find out which officials are responsible.
Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers approved to amend the concessionary agreement pertaining to the Hambantota port. Upon the government's request, the China Merchant Port has agreed to amend the agreement as follows. The amendment will see 30% of the value being paid as the first installment on the effective date, while the second installment coming in 1 month's time. The third installment will remain as agreed before at 60% of the total value. It has also been decided to sign an additional agreement in this regard.
A petition was filed with the Court of Appeal today seeking to invalidate the Gazette notification issued on the demarcation of wards of local authorities. The petition was submitted by 6 people who are residents of Colombo, Kandy, Haliela, Mathura and Ambilipitia.
Ministry of Local Government and Provincial Councils Faiz Mustafa and the Secretary to the Ministry, H.T. Kamal Padmasiri, are named as respondents in the application. The petitioners claim that the Gazette notification was issued by the Minister disregarding the recommendations of the subcommittee appointed to carry out the demarcation of local government bodies. They also point out that such actions are unlawful and that the Minister has no authority to issue the Gazette. Therefore, they request the court to issue an order invalidating the said Gazette notification. The petition is to be taken up for consideration tomorrow. Meanwhile, Supreme Court today decided to take up a fundamental rights case filed by former Chief Minister of North Central Province, S.M. Ranjit, demanding the local government elections to be held soon. Former Chief Minister requested an order against the Elections Commission to go for mini-polls soon. Accordingly, Supreme Court decided to take up the case on the 27th of this month.
Chief Justice Priyasad Deb says that research in state universities are provided with inadequate funding. He made this remark at the annual research symposium held in Colombo today.
The annual Research Symposium 2017, organized by the University of Colombo, focuses on the development of research in various disciplines in university education. The symposium was held under the auspices of Chief Justice Priyasad Deb.
University education has to relate to development. Universities, we all know that they are providers of education. They provide high education to students. So that is the main cause. But apart from that, it has to be research institutes. it has to contribute to the development of the country. So therefore, having research component is a necessary thing. I think one is the financial allocation, whether we have enough funds for the purpose of research. Because that is a problem faced by most of the developing countries. In our country, education is free, so the state is spending a large sum on education. For research, funds are limited. So that limitation is there. As this country is not an industrial country, in a science section, there are also so many limitations. I know most of the honors graduates passed out in the science medium, they are employed abroad. They were absorbed by foreign countries and they are attached to research institutes. Because in Sri Lanka, we have certain limitations, so that has to be expanded. So it's a big challenge faced by the universities.
Colombo magistrates Lanka Jaratna today ordered that the Chief of Staff under former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, Gamini Senarath, be further remanded until the 21st of November. With that, let's take a look at several other stories concerning courts.
The Chief of Staff of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and two others were accused of misusing an amount of 4 billion rupees out of the 18.5 billion rupees allocated for a hotel construction project. All three were further remanded today until the 21st of November. In the meantime, the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court ordered that former Navy spokesperson Commodore DKP Dasnayaka be transferred from the Valisara Navy Hospital to the prison hospital with immediate effect. Commodore Dasnayaka was arrested on the 12th of July following an investigation into the abduction that had occurred during the conflict. The investigation revealed that 11 youth had been abducted illegally and were detained before completely disappearing during 2018 to 2019. Dasnayaka, who was the Navy spokesperson at the time, is accused for being involved in the scandal. The Supreme Court today ordered to pay compensation and legal fees amounting to 800,000 rupees to the British tourist Naomi Coleman, who was arrested in Sri Lanka because she had a statue of Buddha tattooed on her arm. The court ruled that the police had violated her fundamental rights by arresting and detaining the British national over her tattoo depicting an image of Lord Buddha. The Supreme Court ordered the government to pay 500,000 rupees as compensation and 200,000 rupees as legal fees to Naomi Coleman, a 40-year-old mental health nurse from Coventry, England.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
On the business news now, State Minister of International Trade Sujiva Senasinghe says that Sri Lanka will be entering into 5 free trade agreements with China, India, Singapore, Thailand and Malaysia in the near future. Speaking at the 4th and final consultation on finalization, consolidation and validation of the National Export Strategy, the minister said that Sri Lanka will be given an opportunity to export 5,000 items, including vehicles, to India free of duty through the Free Trade Agreement.
The 4th and final consultation on finalization, consolidation and validation of the National Export Strategy took place under the auspices of State Minister of International Trade Sujiva Senasinghe today. 6 priority sectors and 4 trade support functions were identified by the private and public stakeholders at the consultations. Diversification of ICT, wellness tourism, spice concentrates, boat building, processed food and beverages and electrical and machinery were areas which were identified as industries which held the potential to attract foreign investment in the next 5 years. Speaking at the event, the minister added that a committee will be appointed to improve the ease of doing business ranking in Sri Lanka, which fell from 110 to 111th place recently. The National Export Strategy, which aims to generate $20 million in revenue by 2020, is conducted by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, Ministry of Development Strategies and International Trade, as well as International Trade Center in Geneva.
China is planning to invest about $7 to $8 million in Sri Lanka. And whilst improving Hambantota Port, China wants to invest in industrial zones in Sri Lanka as well. Even though manufacturing is our future, for about 20 years we hardly manufactured any new products in Sri Lanka. Probably with the FTA we are signing with India, we might have the opportunity of even exporting vehicles duty-free to India. We probably will have duty-free access to about 5,000.
Let's take you to the stock market now. Shares fell for a fifth straight session today, posting their lowest close in 7 weeks. The all-share price index closed 0.45% weaker at 6,428.83, its lowest close since September 27. It slipped 2.6% in the last 5 sessions. RM Sivanandan at the Colombo Stock Exchange brings this detailed report.
The turnover was 928.63 million rupees with 15.27 million shares changing hands in 3,960 trades. Today, there were 11 crossings and the crossing turnover was 373.32 million rupees. Today's foreign purchases was 716.36 million rupees and the foreign sales was 436.37 million rupees.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to international news now. Australians voted overwhelmingly in favour of same-sex marriage in a national survey, paving the way for legislations to make the country the 26th nation to formalise the unions. According to Australian Bureau of Statistics, over 60% voted in favour of same-sex marriage, with approximately 39% opposing. The poll also recorded a higher voter turnout in comparison to Britain's Brexit vote and Ireland's same-sex marriage referendum. First at 9's correspondent in Melbourne, Australia, Imran Furkan, picks up the story for us tonight.
Greetings from Melbourne, Australia, where the Australian people have said I do to same-sex marriage in a historic postal vote whose results were released today. The survey had about 80% of return rate, which is a very good return for a non-binding postal survey. The survey had cost about 100 million Australian dollars and that had been a matter of concern to the politicians. The next step is for a bill that is being considered tomorrow in the Australian Senate to give certain legal protections for religious concern around same-sex marriage. And then this bill will be, if passed in the Senate, taken up by the House of Representatives, which will vote on it possibly in December. And both Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and opposition leader Bill Shorten are both in favour of same-sex marriage, legalising same-sex marriage, and so are a majority of Australian parliamentarians, according to informal opinion polls conducted. And then there's so much of happiness and joy with parties in almost all major Australian cities. Every state in Australia voted yes, which is a significant milestone. And there was some opposition, mainly from religious leaders and other conservatives. But I think overwhelmingly the people have spoken and the Australian politicians have promised to listen to what the people have said in regards to same-sex marriage.
You are watching Sri Lanka's trusted news brand, Derana 24/7.
A bit of tennis now. Roger Federer qualified for the semi-finals of the ATP World Tour in London for the 14th time in 15 appearances yesterday with a 7-6-5, 7-6-1 win against Germany's rising star Alexander Zverev.
Alexander Zverev had 3 chances to break in the opening game, followed by a 4-0 lead in the tie-break, before a rash forehand error allowed Federer to make a comeback and claim the victory. Federer's final round-robin contest in the Boris Becker group is scheduled for Thursday against Marin Cilic, who was eliminated from the semi-finals by Jack Sock 5-7, 6-2, 7-6. Germany's Zverev, seeded third, also still hold a chance to qualify for the semi-finals, his debut appearance at the O2 Arena. He will play against American Jack Sock in his final group match on Thursday.
5-7, 6-1.
Well, France is toasting the announcement that it will host the 2023 Rugby World Cup after being named the surprise winner of a secret World Rugby Council ballot in London today. The bid beat off competition from the preferred host, South Africa, who play France in Paris on Saturday, and Ireland, having received the nomination after a second round of voting was required. The decision will undoubtedly cause World Rugby to come under fire. However, given the publication of the governing body's independent evaluation report at the end of last month, which recommended South Africa be nominated as host.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Well, Katharina Chang is at the Other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition for the next 24 hours.
A very good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now, if we take a look at your map, we can expect temperatures to vary between 19 and 31 degrees Celsius. Now, fair weather can be expected in most parts of the island. Taking at the northern part of the island, some sunny weather can be expected in Jaffna, Anuradhapura as well as Mena areas. However, thunder showers can be expected in the Trincomalee area over the course of the next 24 hours. Moving further downwards, some sunny weather can be expected in Colombo and Kandy. However, slight drizzle with cloudy weather can be expected in the Hambantota, Galle and Mathura areas. That is it from your Weather Centre tonight, but let's now take a quick look at your city by city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. But before we go, we'd like to take you to the range that consists of 7 peaks and grants a panoramic view of the central hills in the country. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.